Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rick Varenhorst. I'm the CEO of DASA, and I'm very excited about today's webinar with the title How to Master Product Discovery. It's a webinar in the series Best Practices in Product Management. And to give you some context around this topic, we've hosted 3 weeks ago a successful introduction webinar around a suite of new products on product management that we will release very soon. And it was really exciting to see so many of you participating in this event, but also giving so many positive responses and good feedback, sharp questions. And those feedback and questions are also given as input to our product team that is now in the final stages of polishing and delivering those products to market. So I'm very excited about that. On April 10 and 11, so in a few weeks from now, we'll launch our first delivery of the new certification program, DASA Product Management. So put it in your agenda if you're interested. It's followed by, on April 12th, the train-the-trainer session. So for instructors who wish to certify as a trainer and instructor for this new program. And a week later, we have also a train-the-facilitator session to train facilitators to be able to use all the guidance products around product management that we have come up with. And to explain a little bit more on product management, we have a series of webinars to deep dive on specific subtopics. Last week, we had a successful one around the transition that organizations typically go through from a project to product first mindset. Today, we'll focus on mastering product discovery. And next week, we have another one coming up on the value of your product and how to manage that value. Before we dive in, on the next slide, first some housekeeping rules. We will record the session, so the recording will be made available to everyone who cannot attend live, so don't worry about that. Let's try to make it as interactive as possible, but please use the comment section to ask questions throughout the session. So we'll get those questions and we can try to answer as many as we can. And otherwise, we do that offline. And if you have offline any additional questions or feedback, you can always send that to info@dasa.org or visit our website for more information. With that being said, I'm proud to announce to you also our main speaker for today, Leon Smit, who is also the lead author, one of the lead authors of the whole DASA product management suite that we're building. So welcome, Leon, today, and maybe you could start off by introducing yourself a little bit more in depth.
Yes, thank you, Rick, and really happy to be here today. So a little bit about myself. I'm a practice lead at Ordina, responsible for the practice digital product management. I have around 15 years experience in product management, mobile apps, SaaS platforms, corporate startup, and everything in between. Well, based on that, I joined Ordina 2 years ago. And well, one of the partnerships we have with DASA, and we're now working on the product management suite, which is really nice to do, together with Timo, who spoke last week, and Dave, who will be hosting the webinar next week. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here today, and well, I would like to talk a little bit more about product discovery.
Yeah, what about it? Please share your key thoughts, and then let's dive in and see what the audience maybe how it triggers them.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I'm really excited about this is also because, you know, in the last couple of years, I've been speaking with a lot of product owners and product managers, and I found it really interesting that when you talk about product discovery, this is usually very unknown to them. It's not something that's very common to do. Maybe they do use some methodologies or some techniques, but it's quite limited. And at the same time, if we look at, you know, the current economic situation, and you know, there's companies who are cutting on budgets, etc. There's much more focus on outcomes and results, and that's exactly where product discovery can really help. So it can really help organizations to, when they have these ideas, to actually validate which ideas are actually going to work, and it will really enable organizations to be much more effective in their delivery operations. So that's yeah, I'm really happy to talk about it today. And so the goal of today, we're going to talk about product discovery, what it is and why it's important. And we're going to look at the process of product discovery. and how can an organization actually start with product discovery and take small steps to reap the first benefits of it.
Cool.
So that brings me to the agenda. First, we're going to look at the definition to really have a shared understanding of what product discovery actually is. And well, like I said, the benefits really to the organization of using product discovery, what it looks like. And then we go into, how can you start discovering? So maybe a bit of your own discovery process on what works and what doesn't. How can you as an organization start? And last but not least, we will talk about the DASA product management suite and how this can help organizations to take those first steps.
Okay.
So definition and benefits. And let's just start with a definition. So product discovery is the process of identifying and validating valuable product opportunities by deeply understanding user needs, experimenting and iteratively refining ideas to create successful products that align with strategic goals. And well, this is a definition. There's probably other definitions out there, but for me, this really covers the essence of product discovery. So I think it's nice if we dissect this a little bit. So, well, let's look at identifying valuable opportunities, because this is where it starts. And the theory is quite simple, right? I mean, if you are capable as an organization to build a product that is better at solving your customer's problem, well, then you're set up for success. And of course, there's a lot more to it. But well, it starts with identifying the really valuable opportunities. So that's part of the process. And then how do you do that? Well, there's three important steps there. So if we go to the next slide, it's about really understanding user needs. So you can't build a good product if you don't truly understand your user, your customer. So what are the problems? When do they get stuck when they're using your product? What are they currently using, and why would they switch? And that's something that is really important to do with the entire team, also to really understand the problem space and identify what are we trying to solve here. The second one is experimentation. So once you have these ideas, you can use experimentation techniques to really start understanding, based on the ideas that you have, what does work and what doesn't work. So different approaches, using prototypes, see how users respond and those kind of things. And it brings me to the last one, and this is really the iterative refinement part, where product discovery is really a continuous process. And what you do is you continuously try to experiment, to learn based on the data you gather, the feedback you get, and use that to continuously refine the ideas that you have, but also maybe the ideas that you earlier had, but you disregarded because you thought they wouldn't be successful. So continuously using this learning to make your product better and to come up with better ideas. And I think the last part of the definition, it's about alignment with strategic goals. On the next slide, because I think it's also important to understand that we're in an ecosystem, we're in an organization. So what really important is that when we do product discovery and we're working on especially the framing part, which we'll talk about later, that we keep in mind what are the objectives and what's the vision of the organization, to make sure that the discovery activities that we do are really aligned to that. And earlier in the 2 slides back, I mentioned the business, and I don't mean that business in the traditional sense, like you have IT and you have business, but really the business about the business we are in, the organization. And it's really about bringing the entire organization together in different teams, empowered teams, where you have product, you have UX, and you have technology, engineering, and really bringing those together to come up with the right ideas and validating those. Well, before we dive into topics of value, etc., that's for next week. So for today, we will really focus on product discovery. So yeah, product discovery. So why is it important? I think there's 4 really big benefits that I would like to highlight here. The first one is user centricity. So we talk a lot about being customer centric, being user centric. But at the same time, I've been speaking to many product managers, and I noticed that often they don't actually have direct contact to the users. I mean, if you really want to, build a good product and you want to be user-centric, well, then they have to be really part of the process. So product discovery really increases the understanding of user pains, user gains, understanding the problem space, and combining that with a business problem, and then coming up with solutions. And the second one is about risk. So when we start validating, we actually start reducing several types of risk. And within product discovery, we focus on 4 types of risk, being valuability, feasibility, usability, and viability. And we will dive into those, a little bit later. But we actually reduce that risk. The third one is driving innovation. And earlier I mentioned about these teams where you bring together product, UX, and tech. And the cool thing is that when you combine these capabilities and you enable them to really be in charge and be empowered to do solutioning, to together really understand the problem you're solving for customers and come up with solutions that are validated and will work, you actually also create space for innovation, because these 3 capabilities really can work together and really combine their ideas to come up with the best ideas. And that basically means that really making a space for product discovery in the organization, in the process, also makes innovation part of your primary process.
Cool.
And the last one is effective resource allocation. And I mean, especially development resources, right? They are usually scarce. There's way more ideas than there's development capacity. So how cool would it be if you actually have a really high confidence that the things you are going to build actually work, are actually going to move the needle? Well, that's definitely what product discovery also helps with.
Okay.
So let's look a little bit more about what the phases are and the concept behind product discovery. And so this is a model, maybe some people know it. It's from Itamar Galat. And the what's really good to understand and to keep in mind is that most ideas are not good. So if we want to have good ideas, we need many ideas. And when we talk about product discovery, what we're trying to do is we're trying to evaluate those ideas. We're trying to do validation. So we use prototyping, experimentation, etc., to validate the ideas on the risks that we just identified. And then if we say, okay, these are good, this is a good idea, then we start bringing it to delivery and we launch it. And it's interesting because experts suggest, if we look at companies like Microsoft, like Netflix, like the usual suspects, in a best case scenario, around 1 out of 3 products can become successful. And some even say it's less. It's around 5%. But let's go with the optimistic guys here, right? I mean, I'm an optimistic person. But that does mean that 60% of the ideas you have on your roadmap will probably not give you the results that you're anticipating. And then the question is, do you know which ones?
Maybe one question, Leon. This whole process of evaluation and validation, is it just a task of, for example, a product manager or product owner, or are all the team members involved? What's your view on that?
No, it's definitely all the team members. Well, actually, that's very good. Let's go to the next slide, because so there's 4 risks that we talked about here, right? And in the next slide, so we will get there. We will talk about the team, but there's 4 main risks that we want to address.
Okay.
The first one is valuability, and basically we're trying to answer the question: will our customers buy this? Will our users use this? So is this really going to solve the problem that they have? And if it does, are they willing to pay for it? Are they going to use it? But that's valuability. The second one is usability. So we can come up with amazing technical solutions, or we can have amazing ideas, but if we can't build them in a way that they're also user-friendly, well, then users won't really be happy with it, right? So can we build it in a way that it's user-friendly, that the process is nice, what does it look like, how does it work, what's the experience? That's really usability. Then the third risk is feasibility. And this is usually more technical, but can also be process-oriented. So can we actually build this? Will it be technologically sound? Does it fit our architecture? Do we have the right skills? Do we have the right capabilities in the organization to build this? And then the last one is viability. And this is, does it work for the business? Basically, that's the question. So will legal agree? We've had those discussions, right? But will it work for marketing? Will it work for our front office? Those kind of questions. And does it align to the strategic objectives that we have? Because we're in a business, right?
Yeah.
So these are the 4 risks. And then next, and then I'm going to answer your question, Rick.
Okay.
So here, let's talk about the team then, because product discovery and combined with the 4 risks that we're trying to address. So primarily, viability and valuability are really the responsibility of the product manager. But when we talk about usability, that's definitely more in the field of user experience. And feasibility usually is more related to technology and engineering. But then that doesn't mean that those people work in isolation. So it's really important that you work together as a team. And well, for instance, in the past, when I was doing user research, usability research, I always made sure that also my engineering colleagues would be there, because actually the magic happens, the innovation starts to happen when you really start combining this, and when also the engineers understand what problem we're solving, and they also understand what usability issues we have, then they are also capable of defining the right solutions for that together with the other capabilities. And that's super important. So product discovery is not a product management task alone. It's really something for the entire team.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's really in line with with a cross-functional team philosophy that we really value at DASA, and one of our core principles actually. But still, in practice, I see many cross-functional teams that tend to, especially after a while, focus on just building stuff, and then the product owner is the one prioritizing the backlog and trying to segment further, etc. So it would be a waste. This diagram shows clearly how it's important to collaborate on this. So thanks.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that also, you also hear companies sometimes using ready teams, or having teams which, well, often consist of, for instance, analysts who are doing a lot of the preparation work, and they're gathering refinements, etc. But when you do that, there's a really big risk that you're actually not yielding the maximum benefits of your UX capability and your engineering capability. So that's why I think it's super important that you really have a cross-functional team, and that the team is responsible for product discovery.
Okay, got it.
So let's go on to the basic process then. So I think it's important first to highlight that even though there's numbers here, and especially in Europe, we love our processes, right? But it doesn't mean that this is like stage gating. We go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, because like earlier when we saw the flow from Itamar Galat, you are going to. This is first of all, it's a continuous process. But second, I mean, you're going to constantly experiment and iterate. You're going to learn, and you're going to act on what you've learned. So maybe an idea that you parked before, you now decide that it fits in one of the prototypes you're building, and you're going to combine. And maybe I could even say it's a little bit messy, but at least we can identify a couple of stages or steps, and at least the activities that are in there are part of what you are going to do in product discovery. So when we talk about the first thing, it's framing, and this is really identifying the problem space. So what's the business problem? What's the user problem? What is the problem that we are solving? And techniques you use there are like, defining user personas, writing down problem statements, success criteria, but also validating those already. So if we have an assumption on what the problem of a customer is, well, let's go talk to a customer and see if it actually makes sense. Maybe the problem is something else, right? So that's where it starts. Then we go more into planning. And this is also from a business case perspective. So if we say, okay, we have a problem worth solving, then how much time are we going to spend on it? How much time are we willing to spend on it? So we're going to strategize and we're going to prioritize the discovery efforts. Typical techniques that can really help here are story mapping and those kind of methodologies. But well, please keep in mind that it's not static, right? So it's continuously changing. So also when you have new learnings, then you might also decide to change the planning that you created earlier. Then ideation, and this is more maybe the creative part. It's the most obvious, and yet it's where most companies actually fail. Because what we see a lot in organizations is that ideas are actually handed to the team because the idea comes from marketing, and then it's just put on a roadmap and they have to build it. But actually in ideation, this is where the team really starts generating ideas. So they do brainstorm sessions, and of course this can be with marketing, this can be with other departments, this can be with stakeholders, etc. But it's good to keep in mind that the responsibility is really with the team here. And focus is on quantity. So quality is something we will address later. Now it's really about just generating as many ideas as possible. And then we use some of these ideas. So we're going to do an evaluation. We're going to select a couple of ideas that based on gut feeling, learnings we had earlier on data, we think are the most potentially successful. And then we move into prototyping. So there's different kinds of prototypes here. There can be usability prototypes. We're going to build some screens, validate it with some users. We're going to maybe do some technical prototyping, build some proof of concepts. And this allows us to learn if the idea, the solution that we are envisioning, it actually works. And last but not least is the testing part. And this is really where the real proof starts to build up. Because what we do here is that we have one final idea, we have a solution that we think is going to be it. So we're going to use our prototypes, we use everything we have, and we're really going to validate it here. And once that's successful, where you basically answered yes to the 4 risks, where you've identified and understand the 4 risks, then we can start bringing things to delivery.
We might have to speed up a little bit, Leon, because of giving it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can talk about this for hours, so let's go a little bit faster.
Me too, and that's why we have all these great products lined up. But this is just a teaser, of course. But let's. I think there's an important part here to mention, right?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously, as I mentioned before, I know there's a lot of companies are not doing product discovery, right? So how do you start? And last week, Timo spoke about transitioning from a project to a product mindset, and I think there's 3 things that really need to be in place in order to be able to really start with product discovery. So first, you need a team with the right capabilities. So we need a product person, we need a user experience guy or girl, and we need someone from engineering, or ideally more people from engineering. Then the second thing we need is a problem worth solving, and we need some kind of business goal and outcome that we want to achieve. And the third one is a little bit harder, but what we actually need is an organization that is ready to accept that the team is responsible for solutioning. And yes, they can give their input, they can come with their ideas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their ideas is also what's going to be delivered. That requires a little bit more work. It's a culture thing, but it's important to have that, because that's when you can really empower a team. And then maybe to be a little bit more practical. So how can you actually start? So if we go to the next slide, it's about focusing on what moves the needle. So let's define a couple of key results, and whether you're using OKRs or something else, doesn't really understand, but make sure that we have an outcome defined and that we have a clear definition of what business problem we are solving. To formulate your hypothesis about user needs, pain points, etc. Going to gather data, because usually in the organization there already is a lot of data. So let's use that to do the first evaluation. create your discovery plan, and just, well, start discovering from there. So based on what you have, see what you can do to validate the assumptions that you have over the 4 risks that we have identified. And I'd say celebrate when you invalidate an idea, because, you know, if you invalidate an idea, it means that you just saved a lot of time and money on something that wasn't going to work anyway. So that's always a good idea.
Yeah.
So how can DASA support in this? Well, obviously, well, you already mentioned that I have to speed up. We only scratched the surface, right? But I'm really enthusiastic about what we have been developing together with DASA in the last months. Well, in the product management certification program, we obviously go a lot more in depth on also how you work with UX, you know, things when it comes to product management and etc. But I think especially in the product management value box, go to the next slide. I think there's 5 products in there, and one of them is a product discovery workshop, and it really has 5 or it has 5 products, but the product discovery workshop is really tailored at, you know, going through a full cycle of, well, at least along a case, but of product discovery. So then you really start to understand what does it mean.
So you can experience it yourself, basically, Leon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So maybe some final thoughts, and then hopefully we still have time for some questions after that.
Yeah, we should.
So I hope today I have at least made you aware of made clear that product discovery will help you move the needle. It's a team effort. It's not something only for product. It's for you know, product, UX, and tech, and the rest of the organization. It creates space for innovation at the core of your delivery process. It's not that hard to start, and it's definitely going to be fun. I mean, you know, making sure that you are really generating outcomes for the business and being much more aware of what does work and what doesn't, and learning is really a nice process to do.
Yeah, great. And I think, Leon, that although it is fun and it's easy to start, I would not be surprised if many listeners would still feel that it's a relatively new subject. Although if you're into it as a subject matter expert, you might be surprised sometimes. But I think many teams can benefit greatly from adopting this discipline and this activity. And might be also the reason that there are not that many questions right now. That we have quite a modest audience, so no questions live at the moment. But I have one, because I was triggered by what you said earlier on empowering the team. And in general, leadership also has an important role to play to provide or instill the right culture in teams or around teams to enable product discovery to take place more frequently. Can you reflect a little bit on what leaders can best do to instill this right culture for product discovery?
Yeah, I think product discovery, I mean, if you want to empower a product team to be responsible for solutioning, and the one thing you can provide them as a leader is the strategic context. So it's really important that as a leader that you are really clear on what the vision of the organization is, what the strategy of the organization is, and what kind of outcomes we are trying to achieve, because that's the primary input from within the organization that is required for a product team to actually do product discovery.
Yeah, that's great. And I think many leaders, I've been there myself, might make the wrongful assumption that that is already clear and identified, but communication is key here, and keep giving this strategic context is key, I think, to help those teams. Yeah, it's a great answer. Thanks. Well, your email address was on that slide as well. So if there are other questions, please send them to us at info@dasa.org or to Leon directly. As I said, there's more to come. We have next week another webinar, a teaser to focus on another important capability or perspective around product management, if you will. Dave van Herpen will talk about how to manage the value of your product. So don't miss that one. And also worth noting, we have, as I said, on April 10 and 11, the first delivery of DASA Product Management, the new certification program. You saw a few things today around that program, so probably you're even more excited than before. You can still enroll for this program, and we have also a promotion if you do so. You could either choose to get some discount on it, but maybe more attractive would be offer number one, which is that you can get assigned a self-paced certification bundle for free of our DASA DevOps Fundamentals program. Because many of the concepts that we talked about today make an assumption that you are aware of what are typical key ingredients for high-performance teams, high-performance organizations, and for example, cross-functional teams, as we discussed today, but also end-to-end responsibility, a continuous improvement mindset, having customer centricity key in your thinking and behavior. Those things will all be explained in the DASA Fundamentals program. If you're relatively new to this subject, it can be a great way to beef your knowledge and skills and do this bundle. So be aware of those two offers and subscribe if you can make the time for it. If you're interested in becoming an instructor or facilitator for the upcoming DASA product management programs, let us know. We have a link that we will share also in the chat, and it's on the screen here to submit your interest, and we'll get in touch with you and work together. It would be great to spread the word, and we need your help to have more impact at even more enterprises. With that being said, I think we're on the time. Thanks a lot for your attendance, and stay tuned for the upcoming events. Enjoy your day.